No Box Dance presents Dance Behind the Screen, process production, and social media. Don't forget, say no to the box. Dile no a la caja. 고정관념이란 상자에서 벗어나세요.
Welcome back to Dance Behind the Screen podcast. I am your co-host, Martheya. Today, we're talking about nonprofit management with arts administrator and event producer, Rhiannon Martin. Welcome to our show, Rhiannon.
Thank you, Martheya.
I'm so excited to have you here. So to start us off, can you briefly introduce yourself and tell our listeners, what do you do in the nonprofit sector?
Yeah, my name is Rhiannon Martin, and I am a nonprofit consultant for arts and culture organizations in North Texas. I produce events and help organizations with community partnerships and strategic planning and event production, among many other things like that.
Rhiannon, I'm really excited to dig in with you today about everything nonprofits. I was preparing for this interview, and I feel like just the breadth of knowledge that you have for the nonprofit sector is quite extensive. And I feel like you've been involved in nonprofits in so many different ways. So I'm excited to kind of dig into some of those different avenues inside the nonprofit sector. But to start, I want to know about managing a nonprofit. So when it comes to starting or managing your nonprofit, where do you think a dance artist who maybe they're starting their own company or they have dreams to become, make their organization become a nonprofit, where do you think they should begin?
I think a lot of times individuals who want to start a nonprofit don't take the time to step back and take into consideration if they are filling a need that is in the community. And I think kind of the first step is to look at all the different organizations that are already doing this work and to say, can I collaborate with anybody in this space rather than starting my own company, my own 501c3? Is there a space that already exists that's doing this that I can reach out to and start a program with them or whatever that looks like for both parties involved? But if they are finding that, that is a need in the community, I think, starting that conversation with other organizations that work in a similar space is a great place to start, especially organizations that are outside of your community, that are doing things that you are really focused on wanting to do.
How would you go about reaching out to already established organizations and wanting to bring your vision and idea to their already established organization?
Sure. So I think the first step is really just starting to form an authentic relationship with the leaders in that organization. And I just want to kind of make a little side note, because that doesn't necessarily have to mean forming relationships with people that have those top leadership titles.
Like executive director.
Exactly.
Managing director.
Exactly. And I'm very big on empowering people to know that they don't have to have that top leadership title in their role to be a leader in their organization. So I feel like there are a lot of people who are development managers or community engagement coordinators that are really out there doing the work in their community, and they are not recognized enough for the leadership that they bring to the community or to their organization. So even starting there, forming an authentic relationship.
The No Box Dance Film Festival, NBFF, is now accepting submissions for its 5th year as an independent film festival. NBFF seeks dance-related films that challenge the possibilities of what dance can look like in video form. NBFF has 4 categories for submissions: short series, general, documentaries, and kids. For more information on how to apply, visit filmfreeway.com/KNOW BOX Dance Film Festival.
I want to talk about arts administration education. I know that you have certificates in nonprofit management and fundraising, and that you also have a graduate degree in arts and culture and strategy. And I'm wondering for our listeners and for myself who don't have any of those certificates or degrees, and maybe have a dance degree or have no degree at all, and are really interested in this nonprofit space, how would you recommend that they increase their knowledge base? Like, where do you go?
Absolutely. So we have a really great kind of underutilized resource right here in Dallas called the Center for Nonprofit Management. And that is the organization that I earned my nonprofit management certificate and my fundraising certificate through. It's really an affordable program. I want to say that both of those certificates were between $400 and $600, which does kind of sound like a lot, but when you're investing in yourself, then it's well worth the price. I feel like I learned a lot in, especially that nonprofit management course. It's a cohort, and I made so many amazing connections with people across different nonprofits. And I'm so big on arts organizations cross collaborating with organizations that focus on social services issues and just kind of thinking outside of the box of what they normally do. I also want to talk about the Business Council for the Arts, Leadership Arts Institute.
Which is how we got connected,
It sure is.
Yeah.
I was about to say,
Yeah.
Martheya and I are both graduates of that program.
And you like steered the alumni committee, is that correct?
I did. I steered the alumni committee for 2 years, and recently rolled off in January, and now that is being chaired by the amazing Catherine McClellan Kelly. So that's such a great program, and that is I believe, a 9-month program that teaches people who want to serve on nonprofit boards all about nonprofit leadership and how to be really great board members. But I think for us who, work in the nonprofit industry, it's such a great and underutilized resource.
We at No Box Dance definitely feel the same way. That's why we even started this season theme to begin with, going behind the scenes of the business of dance, because we found that through our journey of trying to figure out how to become a nonprofit, it was really all the individuals that we would talk to along the way that would kind of keep re-steering us in the right path as we learned new information. You fill out this form. Okay, now what? Oh, the IRS. Okay, now this. So it's been really helpful to just have all these conversations with guests just like yourself. And I remember meeting for coffee too, as we were still kind of like figuring out the whole nonprofit world. And you were so open and generous with your time. So I'm really grateful for that.
Oh, thank you. Also, I know there are resources that I am not thinking of right now that I would be happy to share. If you want to share any links to those,
yeah, that would be great. We can link them in our show notes.
Yeah, awesome. I'll look for that too. And if anybody wants to reach out to me directly, I'll give you my email address to include. And I have a folder of resources that I've been collecting for, I don't know, probably a decade, that I always share with anybody who reaches out to me looking for help. So there's a lot of info in there. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Rhiannon. We'll definitely take you up on that. So I want to shift gears a little bit into talking about your experiences serving on different boards and committees. I know you have steered lots of committees. You continue to serve on many different boards. I was reading your bio on, I can't remember which website, and I was just like, there's like 10 different boards I feel like that you're serving on. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know how you do all of that. But I'm wondering, from the perspective of an organization like No Box Dance, what advice do you have for artists who are wanting to build their board?
So my biggest advice for finding new board members is to look for people who are part of the community that you serve.
So could you give an example for No Box Dance, for instance? So we're an art service organization. We have an International Dance Film Festival, and we have our podcast. Who would you recommend for us in Dallas?
I really do want to think of like a good example for No Box specifically.
And I asked that to be transparent. And a few episodes back, I was interviewing Diana about developing a donor base. And right now, how No Box Dance is situated is our board is essentially our working team. So there's only 4 of us on our board, but we're also working for the organization as well as contractors. And in the past 2 years, we've established an advisory committee. So they don't have a vote on our board, but they are able to give different recommendations to us and really help us grow.
That's really smart.
So I'm curious, like, are there people maybe that we haven't thought of that might be a great addition?
So I would say for No Box, since you do so many things that are really intertwined with film and media, I would look at individuals who work in that sector and also have a passion for the arts. And if they have a passion for dance, even better. So somebody that can really like help provide resources for the work that you're already doing and help elevate it to that next level. I think that's really important to kind of think about really like what that looks like. But also like if, you know, you have a small team, if there's nobody on your team that is like really like a marketing guru, use those resources to look for somebody that is just like killing it in marketing in the corporate world, and they just really want to use like their time and knowledge and resources to like help a nonprofit grow, and listen to their advice and let them kind of, you know, help you steer what or how the organization like brands itself, or, you know, how you present yourself to the community.
No Box Dance is now on Patreon. Gain access to our community resources, early access to Dance Behind the Screen podcast episodes like this one, membership in our creative book club, personalized dance film feedback, and more. Visit patreon.com/KNOWVOXDance to select the membership level that is right for you.
Can I share another quick resource while I'm thinking about it, since we're talking about boards? So Communities Foundation of Texas and Business Council for the Arts both have really great resources for finding board members that have specific talents that you are looking for. So with both of those organizations, you can fill out a form and say, you know, I'm really looking for somebody that has a strong background in IT, or, I mean, I hate to say marketing again, or finance. Yes, that's a really good one. And they will put out those calls to people who are graduates of, in the case of Business Council for the Arts, their Leadership Arts Institute that we were talking about earlier. And with Communities Foundation of Texas, they have a program called Emerging Leaders in Philanthropy that works in the same way, but kind of focuses on nonprofit organizations across all sectors. So they will connect you with people who sort of specialize in those things. And I know, like, as artists, we don't always, like, we're not always numbers people. I know I'm not a numbers person. So if somebody like wants to come in and like do finances for an organization that I'm working for, yes, please. Because I don't ever want to do that. I mean, I will, but I don't ever want to do that. And especially if there's somebody that's like, oh, that takes me 5 minutes. And I'm like, That would take me an hour. Like, please come and help us.
Which is the importance of having a diversified board with people
Absolutely.
from so many different backgrounds. And I'm glad that you brought up those 2 additional resources for board matching. I think that will be really important for our listeners. And if they don't live in the Dallas or North Texas area, perhaps they can look to other organizations that might be similar on a national or international scale.
Absolutely. So there are communities foundations in cities across the country, and there are other organizations similar to the Center for Nonprofit Management across the country as well that offer similar services. So if you are not in Dallas, just a quick little Google search for board member finding Detroit or wherever you live. Like that'll be really helpful. I've looked up similar things for friends in other cities before and was able to successfully find resources like that to help.
Do you think social media is influencing the dance world? And if so, how does it influence your work?
Yes, I think it's influencing the dance world tremendously. And I was listening to Christina's episode, and I was like, Martheya's going to ask me that too. How do I want to answer that? And I will say that I feel like it has made dance more accessible to people who are not traditional dancers or not trained dancers with, platforms like TikTok. I mean, I'm not saying like people are going to learn these dances and like want to become like professional working dancers, but I think just being able to bring that discipline to the masses in that way is like really, really powerful, and maybe it will and like inspire, a young person who might not have access to dance in any other way to really want to reach out and figure out how to make that more a part of their world. And I'll say with YouTube as well, I was watching a video the other day of a young girl who was talking about how she taught herself dance, and she was amazing. She was talking about how she really wanted to get into classes and learn proper technique, but like she was incredible from just watching some YouTube videos and like learning herself. And I think also that apps like TikTok and YouTube also do a lot for representation as well. So, I mean, there are children who may not be able to see a live dance performance and have the opportunity to look at that on whatever site they choose.
No, that's totally true. And I think it's just so important to be reminded of that. And it's helpful to hear from people who aren't necessarily dancers or in the dance world that they are able to identify the impact that it's having on the world at large as well. Does social media impact the work that you do in the nonprofit sector?
So I think social media is definitely an important tool for any organization to use, but especially with the arts, I think that it's such a great way to kind of get our work out there to the public. So I'll use an organization that I work with right now as an example. The Turtle Creek Chorale is a primarily gay men's chorus, and there are about 175 singers currently. And it's an organization that's been around they are in their 43rd season, but there are still people in Dallas who don't know about the Turtle Creek Chorale. And I am always excited when our incredible director of marketing, Maya, posts something amazing and I'm able to share that out. And people are like, oh my God, like I've heard of the Turtle Creek Chorale, but I didn't realize that this was the Turtle Creek Chorale. Yes, it is. Please come to a concert. So I think it plays such an impactful role. And I'll also say, with going back to talking about YouTube, that we, or all organizations, are able to post full concerts if they choose to, and that gives people the accessibility to go and watch those concerts or performances or whatever it may be, when it is convenient for them. And I also love that people are using streaming platforms as well. Dallas Black Dance Theater excuse me, is doing such an incredible job of posting their performances
On
as
demand,
as on-demand options, and I love that so much. I think that is so brilliant. And even like live streaming options are really great for accessibility as well. But yeah, I think social media plays such an important role in the way that artists and arts organizations really get their message and their work out into the world. And I mean, people across the world can see that work too. And I think that's so powerful that it's not just limited to Dallas or just, the North Texas community. Like, your friend in New York can type in a web address and, see something that you created.
How do you say no to the box?
So I feel like I say no to the box by really staying true to being my authentic self and not fitting into the sort of mold of what people expect someone in leadership to be. There are different ways to be a leader. We don't all need to work the same way. And I think that that's really important, to just stay true to your authentic self when you are in a leadership position. And I always think, like, there are younger people who are looking at the people in leadership right now, and if they are not seeing themselves reflected in those spaces, then for a lot of people in their minds, it's like, okay, well, I'm not like that. Leadership's maybe not for me, but I want everyone to feel empowered to be a leader if that is something that they feel passionately about doing. And I think that kind of goes along with, if you can see it, you can be it. So, I mean, just trying to be my authentic self and not fit into any kind of mold is how I say no to the box.
For our final segment, we have our Flash 4, where we ask all our guests to answer 4 questions in a flash. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right. If you had to recommend a resource to our audience, what would it be?
The Executive Program in Arts and Culture Strategy with the University of Pennsylvania and National Art Strategies, but also any arts leader here in Dallas.
What was the first dance you saw?
Oh, no, I don't know. The first dance that I can think of off the top of my head was Snow White at the Kennedy Center.
That's a cool first dance.
It was really cool. I don't think it was the first dance I ever saw, but it's like the first one that's like coming to mind.
Do you think social media has a positive influence on the dance world? Yes or no?
Absolutely.
What is your favorite social media platform?
TikTok.
Well, Rhiannon, today was fantastic. I really appreciate your openness, and I loved hearing about the importance of partnering with different organizations as a way to really get started in the nonprofit world. And I really appreciate all the resource recommendations that you shared, and we'll definitely link all of those out in the show notes for this episode. But before you go, is there anything else that we haven't talked about today that you really want to make sure to share with our listeners?
I mean, I just want to reiterate how important representation is in anything that we're doing. Be your authentic self and put yourself out there so young people can see you doing it, especially for leaders of color in the arts. Put yourself out there so we can encourage more young people of color to come into this space and feel empowered and know that it's a space for them.
Well, Rhiannon, how can our listeners stay connected with you and all of the important work that you do?
So you can stay connected with me through you can stay connected with me via email at Rhiannon, RHIANNON.martin.214@gmail.com.
Thank you so much, Rhiannon, for coming on our show. I'm really grateful for your time, and I look forward to seeing what's next for you and our connections and collaborations in the future.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Martheya. I'm so honored to be on your podcast.
Dance Behind the Screen podcast is produced by No Box Dance, an art service organization that creates, collaborates, and discusses art with artists and the public. Dance Behind the Screen podcast is co-hosted by Azaria Hogans, Raina Mondragon, Martheya Nygaard, and Yejin Choi, with sound design by Daniel Rosas.
Thanks for taking your time to tune into Dance Behind the Screen, a bi-monthly interview series where we go behind the screen to question process, product, and social media. Be sure to follow us on social media at KNOW Box Dance. See you next time, and don't forget to say no to the box.